Four divisions, four hosts, all battling it out for the Holy GrAHL of the American Hockey League, the Calder Cup. This is the Holy GrAHL Podcast with Andrew Rinaldi, Deana Weinheimer, Jeremy Paul, Michael Liu, and Zack Power.
Well, hello, and welcome to episode number 26 of Field Pass Hockey's flagship AHL podcast, the Holy GrAHL. Here at the Holy GrAHL, we are all about the American Hockey League and their yearly race to their Holy GrAHL, the Calder Cup. But before we get too far into this, we're going to go around the screen here, introduce ourselves to anyone who may be new or maybe forget who we are. So we're still going to go in alphabetical order, but Andrew's not here. So I think it's like, I guess it's going to be me. It's going to be me. So hello, I am your moderator, AHL editor, and Cleveland Monsters reporter here at Field Pass Hockey, Deana Weinheimer. Happy to have you here. And boy, do we have a lot of playoff talk for you today.
It's getting exciting. It's that time of year. Episode 26. We're off of the parents' insurance for my friends in the States because we're 26 episodes old. But what's up, everyone? My name is Jeremy Paul. I write beat for the Rochester Americans and hop on this little show. You might have heard of it called the Holy GrAHL every week. So very glad to be here talking about some chaotic playoff scenarios with you two today.
Yeah, and like I was saying to Andrew last week, it's like we're old enough now that we don't have the young driver's tax on the rent-a-cars. We can just walk right into Enterprise and, yeah, I'll take that Camaro, please. I'm Zack Power, and I'm a writer here with Field Pass Hockey, and we got lots of good playoff talk coming up, so it's going to be a good episode.
All right. Well, before we get into all the playoff talk and everything else, we did have a little bit of breaking news come out today. As we're recording, it's Tuesday. But guys, have you ever heard of games being rescheduled for weather in April?
Can't say that I have, and I can't say that I have any desire to live in a place that would experience weather cancellations in April.
So this story is kind of fun for me. It's combining like my two passions, weather and hockey. But yeah, it's true. On Tuesday, the American Hockey League announced that, quote, due to impending inclement weather, the game on Friday between the Rockford Ice Hogs and Manitoba Moose in Winnipeg has been moved to Sunday, April 17th at 2 p.m. Central Time. Saturday's game between the teams is still on as scheduled. But you might be wondering why? Well, it shouldn't surprise anybody. Winnipeg, Manitoba, it's snow. Not just any snow, though. So get this. Between Tuesday and Thursday, they're looking at around anywhere between 30 to 50 centimeters. For those of us down here in the States, that means 11 to 19 inches of snow in two separate blasts, with the second one coming in Thursday and Thursday night. Across southern Manitoba, meteorologists with Environment Canada are calling for widespread accumulations of 30 to 40 centimeters likely. So in short, this is being called, quote, potentially the worst blizzard in decades, end quote. I mean, honestly, reading the forecast and all of the wording in the warning made me a little bit nervous for the people up there. I mean, in a league that relies on buses for transportation, I can definitely see why they made this call. And I'm wondering if they can get this series off at all, because they're talking about it could be until next week until they can get some roads open and get transportation back to somewhat normal.
I would say, as its nickname is Winterpeg, they're kind of used to the snow by now. And, God love the people of Winnipeg because they are resilient people. If there's anything that they know how to do is battle through a snowstorm. But I can't remember a time where I've actually seen a cancellation like this, especially this far into April too, right? Most of the times we're into the 14th now. And so when we kind of talk about that, we're kind of talking about like playoff time. This is usually like the start of the playoffs, the end of the season, maybe it's the last game or something like that. Usually games that were postponed are being played now. So yeah, to everyone in Winnipeg, stay safe out there and make sure you got some extra gas for your snowblower or your shovel. Make sure you got that ready out of your shed or what have you, and stay safe.
No doubt. And I think, first of all, I've never heard of Winterpeg. That's incredible. Like, I'm a big fan of that. But today it was like 65 in Grand Rapids, and people were out here wearing shorts. So, like, that's like the weather report across the AHL.
Well, down here in Columbus, we're getting into NHL territory. We're recording at 8:45 p.m. on Tuesday, and it is currently 64 degrees. Still in the evening after the sun's gone down. But yeah, this storm is causing, down south in prime ECHL territory, we're covering all the leagues here today. This storm is causing massive tornadoes. There's been particularly dangerous situation warnings gone out. So just best wishes to everybody on both ends of the storm, whether you're in the severe thunderstorms, the tornadoes, or this massive blizzard that's going to be taking place. Just best wishes for all you guys. Stay safe and curl up with a few good podcasts and just enjoy. And then we have one more piece of breaking news. The American Hockey League announced on Tuesday 2 suspensions. First will be from the Bakersfield Condors forward Luke Esposito, who has been suspended for 1 game as a consequence of a spearing incident in a game at Colorado back on April the 8th. As such, he will be missing Bakersfield's game on Wednesday, the 13th at San Jose. And then from the Colorado Eagles, forwards Alex Bocage has been suspended for 2 games as a consequence of a boarding incident versus Bakersfield the next day on April the 9th. Now he will be missing Colorado's games on Friday the 15th and Saturday, April 16th versus the Tucson Roadrunners in Tucson. All right, we're going to go ahead and move into our week in review. So as always, we start off this segment with the player of the week. This week, the AHL has named Iowa Wild goaltender Zane McIntyre its player for the week ending April 10th. So McIntyre allowed just 5 goals on 124 shots over 4 starts last week, helping the Wild to 4 critical victories in their hunt for a berth in the Calder Cup playoffs. Now, he had a split in San Diego last weekend. Iowa continued its 6-game road trip in Tucson, and he made 26 saves in a 6-1 victory on Tuesday. Followed that with 25 saves as the Wild earned a 5-1 win on Wednesday, and then they moved on to Texas and the Stars, where he made 30 saves, stopped 5 of 6 shootout attempts to preserve a 4-3 win over the Stars, and finished the trip with a 38-save shutout and Sunday's 3-0 Iowa victory. 4 starts, 6 days, 4-0-0, 1.23 goals against average, and a .960 save percentage. All in all, he helped the Wild finish the week in 5th place in the Central.
And correct me if I'm wrong too, is he's been playing all throughout a whole bunch of different teams. And I think he started out this year. I don't think he started out in Iowa. I believe that he was a late kind of pickup. So I mean, when we kind of talk about Iowa, I'm sure we'll kind of allude to it a little later on, but these are critical wins that he kind of backstopped. And when you're in the playoffs, this is the kind of goaltender you need. You need someone who's able to kind of make saves when it's needed. And that's the big thing about, playoff contenders, playoff goaltenders. For the most part, we take a look at the NHL, AHL, ECHL, you do have that one starting goaltender for the most part that kind of is your ride or die. And clearly that they've seemed to have a good ride or die, or someone that they can kind of take into the playoffs pretty deep. Me and Andrew talked about it last week with Kochekov. He's one of those goaltenders, and McIntyre is the same way, where you need someone that you're able to kind of ride into the sunset with, especially in the Central Division.
Now, according to the AHL.com, he started the year with Tucson, 3 games and a .273 goals against average. And then he's played 29 games for Iowa, a total of 2.37 goals against average. But yeah, no stranger to the league. I mean, every year except for 1 year, his goals against average from the 25-16 season on has been under 3. The only anomaly is a 3.16 with the Utica Comets in 24 starts in 2019, 2020. Not too bad, but very deserving of that this week.
Yeah, stop me if you've heard this cliche before, but sometimes all you need is a goaltender to get hot at the right time, and and here we are. Like, and I mean, as we creep in, I mean, Iowa could really use some of that surefire goaltending in the playoffs, which we'll talk about here soon.
All right, and we have quite the list of milestones that players hit this past week. I know we talked about a big team milestone in last week's podcast with the Hershey Bears, but this week, it's all about the individuals. And I know a lot of them, won't take much credit for it, but they deserve a little bit of time in the spotlights. We're going to go ahead and give them that. So first goes to the Chicago Wolves and Stefan Noesen, who has become the first AHL player in 11 years to score more than 40 goals, or actually to score 40 goals in a season. Now, of course, he's on that top line with Andrew Porrowski, CJ Smith, but that line's been hot pretty much all season. No surprise, but 11 years, I thought somebody would have taken that crown by then.
Yeah, that's the part that's hard to believe to me is just in a league full of folks who have developed into really, really good goal scorers at the NHL level. It's hard to believe that of all those folks, nobody hit 40. Especially when we're having conversations, I know it's a different conversation, but like about players possibly eclipsing 60 or 65 in the NHL. It's like that talent is coming through the AHL in a lot of cases. And for that not to happen in 11 years, it kind of was a surprising stat.
And maybe it's just because of the NHL teams seeing those hot players, and then before they can hit those milestones, they snap them up and take them on up into the big club.
There's some truth to that. It has to be part of it. I wonder how many players have been on pace for a 40-goal season, but have gotten yanked for that reason.
That's a good off-season research project, I think. Put that in the back of your head. So moving on to last Wednesday, Garrett Wilson actually skated in his 500th AHL game. And just a few days later, Zac Dalpe, the current captain of the Charlotte Checkers, skated in his 600th pro game on Sunday. I mean, these are some guys that, especially Dalpe, has been around the league a little bit, but Dalpe's had a few looks up at the NHL level, but has really just stayed in the American Hockey League and is just one of those pros that truly loves the game. And congratulations to both of them for finding that longevity in this league that is so competitive and really looks to its young stars.
And that's one of the big core pieces to any AHL or even NHL squad is kind of looking for that kind of veteran presence to have in the locker room, especially in the AHL where it's a younger league. You kind of need someone to kind of, tame out the guys a little bit and kind of keep them focused and, remind them why they're here and whatever. And vice versa. They kind of feed off you as you feed off them as well. And that sort of thing. And that's a big thing when it comes to any sort of team is to be able to have someone like that, especially in that role, who's been around the game long enough. He knows his, when we talk about some of these new players coming in, I don't want to allude too far into it, but I know that there's a couple of players who scored their first AHL goal this week, and that's a big part of it is to have someone on there to say, hey, welcome to AHL, and let me get you settled in a little bit, and that's something big that a lot of the young players look forward to.
All right. And you know what? We're just going to go right in to the next point, which Zach, teed it up quite nicely. Alex Peters from the Bakersfield Condors actually got his first AHL goal this past Saturday in a 6-5 win over Colorado. Now, if you would have told me that Bakersfield was going to beat Colorado, I don't think I would have taken that bet at all. But what a key victory for that team and what a memorable game to do that in. And then finally, last Saturday, Dylan McIlrath, a player that, is no stranger to the American Hockey League. A lot of people know his name quite well, but he tallied his 100th AHL point and a 5-2 victory over Springfield. And then we have one more. I guess it's kind of a milestone, but now this past Sunday, the Hartford Wolfpack ended up snapping a 7th-game losing streak with an overtime victory, thanks to Maxime Letunov in Charlotte. But This next fact actually is courtesy of Ricky Milliner at Milliner06 on Twitter. This game was actually the first win in franchise history in the city of Charlotte against the Checkers. So that was kind of a rather fascinating milestone in my research for this podcast episode.
Yeah, and I have to say, anytime that Latunov does literally anything, I can only think about Andrew saying how much Chicago might end up regretting trading him to the Checkers. And he's been such a pivotal piece for them, like you mentioned, in the last couple of weeks since the deadline. And it's going to be really fascinating to see if this team does make the playoffs. Like, what kind of a role is he going to have on this team, and how important is he going to be? Because I think the answer is very.
Yeah, that's the big question kind of surrounding this team. Is Hartford making a comeback? Could they make that comeback? If you're not watching, Zach's doing a very empathetic shake of the head. No.
It's not going to happen. You're in too deep. This is it. You're done.
You really think? I mean, there's still a couple weeks. I mean, it could very well happen.
It's never good to kind of spiral down, especially in the later part of the season like this. 7 games is a lot to lose in the month of April and the end of March. It is a lot, and especially in the American Hockey League, especially in such a tight race. Like, if this was the Central Division, I guess even the Central Division now is pretty tight. But I mean, when you're kind of getting down to the wire, this is where the points matter the most. To only come away, to only come away with an overtime win. I mean, this is something that Hartford kind of needs to take from this and kind of keep moving. Is they need someone to be able to kind of step up and be the hero and say, okay, we're not out yet. This is one of those things where we're going to keep on moving. Like, we know that we have a playoff spot currently. Yes, we're teetering on the edge, but we need someone in the locker room to say, hey, let's get this goal, right? Like, let's win this. Let's make this the first time that we're going to win in Charlotte. And so, yes, that's a really good opportunity. Great time. Could be too far.
Who do you think is going to be that player? I mean, whenever you look at the roster, there's not a whole lot of people that we've really talked about. They've kind of skated under the radar for the most part. I mean, right now, their top scorer is Anthony Greco. He has 56 points, 19 goals, 37 assists. But then after that, it's Nick Merkley. He spent some time with San Jose, has played 11 games for Hartford. He only has 43. And a lot of the players have kind of been in and out of the lineup. Do you see anybody on this list that might be that catalyst to get them there and change their fortune here?
And that's a big thing. Kind of when I look up and down the kind of roster, there is a couple guys that have been around the league enough to know their way around. Jared Tenorti is a guy who has NHL experience. He's played a lot of time down the AHL as well. We kind of talk about Adam Huska, who's been a real great goaltender on the team. But it's not always that a team is kind of built as a playoff squad. And I don't want to kind of delve, just keep twisting the knife here, but I don't see it from Hartford. And I think that when you go up and down some of the other rosters, they have that veteran experience. They have a more rounded team where you kind of see those star players that you can kind of rely on, someone that you can put out on a shift. You're down by 1 in the third period. There's 5 minutes left and you just need someone to score. And, I often think that there's got to be some kind of thought going through the benches. I don't know about this. I don't know about this, right? Like, this isn't the exact player that we would kind of want on the bench. And for me, the reality of it is just some teams aren't built like playoff squads. And I just don't see it from Hartford. Watch them win the Calder.
That would be the season ending oof.
Now that you've said it, it's almost bound to occur.
Maxim Latunov with the Calder Cup winning goal in overtime. You
clip this.
Well. But you also have to think about it too. 7 games is not the be all end all for Hartford. We're talking about a team that was up at the top of the standings, and this has been a spiral. I want to say, like, this isn't, this has been a pretty slow burn. They've been declining ever since the that point in the season where they were at the top, and then it was just everything booted so quickly, and then they couldn't keep up. It's like, Providence came in, Springfield came in, and Charlotte came in, and it was like a three-way race for the top, right? And four, I guess, with Hartford, and they just couldn't keep up with everyone else, right? And Springfield started to get a lot of their players back. Charlotte came out with this confidence like I've never seen, and they've picked up a lot of players throughout the run of the season as well. And Providence has been pretty steady Eddie, right? And they have some great goaltending along the way in Grosnick. So when we kind of talk about Hartford, you also have to think about who you're up against. And sure, I do like them better than I like Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and I possibly like them better than I like Hershey at this moment. But I digress. It's one of those things is Bridgeport's hot on the tail, right? And we're only talking about a game or two in difference between that. And sure, with this whole division and the percentage points, anything can happen. And that's the big kind of key. They may have 2 games in hand on Bridgeport, but if Bridgeport does have that extra games where they can get that more percentage, that could be the big thing. And that's, sorry to go on a tangent, but that's another part of this AHL format that we kind of live under today. So if we're tied, if both teams are tied at 66 points, 66 games, right? They have the same percentage. And what happens now if Bridgeport gets another couple of games in hand, right? What are we kind of looking at there? So that's kind of one of the things that I kind of look at it too, especially with COVID too, and games have been canceled. I think there's been a few games that have been canceled outright. And so I don't know how that kind of affects everything. Please don't quote me on that. But, I think that when we kind of look at, it's a part of the playoff format, is this new playoff format kind of changes the game, and it changes how Hartford has to play. It means that you cannot lose 7 games in a row in the last half of the season, right? It's just not possible. You can't. And so when you kind of look at a team like this, you're looking up and down your bench, and I'm seeing a lot of guys who haven't really had a whole lot of experience. We're talking 22, 23-year-olds, which doesn't really amount to a whole lot in that veteran column. You don't really see a whole lot of players up in the top 10 of the standings. I can't remember at any point in the season where we kind of talked about, oh, hey, this guy in Hartford, he's got, the best save percentage in the league. He's got the best in rookie points. He's got the best in goals, right? And so that's kind of the big thing that I look at with them. 7-2-1 in their past 10 going into Tuesday, which is a scary number, especially considering that everybody above you is doing really well, right? And Bridgeport's 6-3-1 heading into Tuesday. So what does that kind of say about their team, right? So and it's one of those things. And even Bridgeport has kind of scored more goals than you. They've had heading into Tuesday 193 goals for, 211 goals against. Okay, Bridgeport has 200 and 214. I mean, sure, there's a bit of a difference there, but they're letting in more goals than what they're scoring. And that's always a troubling sign with any team in my mind.
It is. And just to do a little correction in there, I think you meant to say 2-7-1 and not 7-2-1. Yes.
Other way around. Yes.
Yeah, 7-2-1. We talk about a whole other.
It's a whole other game.
Whole different conversation. He wouldn't have gone off on that tangent if it was 7-2-1. But yeah, this is the time of the season that we should be expecting teams to start playing that playoff hockey, starting to up that intensity a little bit, just to kind of get used to what that playoff hockey is going to be like. So it's not an overnight change.
And that's the other side of it too, is we're seeing now in the final stretch, we're seeing a lot of playoff matches happening. Even this weekend alone, there's still a couple of potential playoff matches that if the playoffs started today, this would be the games. And so when you kind of struggle against some of these teams that you really need the points out of, I think that if the playoffs started today, I think that they would play Charlotte. If it's 1-6, I believe that they would be playing Charlotte. So you have to be able to winning games against Charlotte. Great that they did it in overtime. But the fact that they haven't won a game in Charlotte until this point is kind of scary. And even at any point in this season, right? It would be bad enough if you said they haven't won a game in Charlotte this season. I would say, okay, that's not good. Now we're going back, right? So and that's one of those things. It's they need to be able to beat Charlotte if you want to be able to win. Charlotte's so hot right now, and if they continue to be hot they have 5 games left heading into Tuesday. So if they keep playing like that, the writing's on the wall.
As of right now, so if the Calder Cup playoff started today on April the 12th, Hartford would actually face the Providence Bruins in the first round, which is a best of 3. And then the winner of that would go on to face the Charlotte Checkers in the best of 5 division semifinals.
And so
different this year, how it's all set up.
It's hard to keep track. So it's one of those things too, where, okay, so you're going to go against Boston. Providence, pretty close. We kind of talked about kind of the goaltenders that kind of rely on as well. Grosneck has been their go-to in Boston, and they've had a lot of really good players who've stepped up to the plate, especially when they needed it throughout the regular season in Providence. And, I don't want to kind of allude to anything or Chris Wagner has been really good. Stephen Fogarty has been on my list, right? That all goes down the list and you kind of see Victor Berglund and Jacob Wilson on the fence sort of thing. Aaron Ness has been really good. Josiah Didier has so much time in the AHL. He's at least 5-6 years now. That's the veteran experience, right? So that's all a part of it. And, I don't see those kind of players in Hartford.
All right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and move on. A lot of great thoughts, great talk, but we'll get more into the playoff talk here a little bit later on in the show when we talk about the race to the Holy GrAHL. So, but we do have a little bit of an oof to give to the American Hockey League and the funky playoff system for this year. We talked a little bit about it just now, about how it's so hard to keep track. But, guys, I didn't understand this at all. And I have a screenshot to share for you. All right. So get this. In what world, except for this iteration of the American Hockey League, does the second place team in the Atlantic clinch their spot in the 2022 Calder Cup playoffs before the first place team? I mean, it's insane. It's insane. Honestly, it's because, they're doing the whole points percentage thing. And, it's because they play fewer games than the first place Springfield. So Charlotte was able to clinch with a 6-2-1. But the whole thing is just so crazy. I don't know. It just threw me off and it's irritating. So I gave it the oof for the week.
I don't see the sense in it, to be honest. 68, so they had to play 66 games versus 62. Why? Is it because they chose to play more different opponents? Like, if they choose to play the extra 4?
Going into this season, teams were given a choice on how many games to play. They had to play a minimum number of games and a maximum amount of games. So it was basically left up to each team. So because Charlotte plays fewer games, they got in first.
Interesting.
And again, like, we try our best on this show to be like the least numbery people in the world. Like, I think it's like important that we like stick to that. But it's fascinating because with every point, obviously, your gross total of your point percentage obviously changes drastically based on the number of games you've played. If you look at just in the North Division, for example, Rochester and Belleville are probably going to be your 5 and 6 going down to the wire. and Belleville playing less games than Rochester. Rochester playing 76, and I believe Belleville is coming in at 72. For every for every point that Belleville collects in the grand total, it is 0.0069 to their total win percentage, and Rochester for every point they win or they get was 0.066. So that is 0.3 of a point percentage per point, which is not dramatic. But when we talk about like whether or not some of these might even be freaking tied by the time this comes down to things, each point is worth more to a team like every team in the Pacific who's played 68 games, and theirs is 0.007. So it's pretty dramatic when you start to consider how different these totals are, and it becomes a little bit, asinine in my opinion when you look at the disparities across the division.
I'm just glad that this is basically the last season we have to deal with this, because moving forward, it's what they're calling like a league realignment or league unification. I forget what term or phrase that they use, but I believe it's going to be moved up to 72 games for every team in the league. So I'll be happy once that is done. Then we'll go strictly by points and the way that it used to be and the way that it should be. That's my take for the week.
In the Pacific Conference.
All right. Well, speaking of takes, I think we're going to go ahead and move on to our hot take section of the show. Swipe left or swipe right. So quick overview of the rules for those who may be new here. So just like your favorite dating app, we're going to present, each of the guys are going to present a hot take or a profile for us. Then we're all going to decide if we're going to swipe left on it. If we don't like it, swipe right if we do. And super swipe up if we really like the take. We get one super swipe up per month. So Jeremy, since Andrew's not here, you get to go first, my friend.
I am so honored to be that role today. I'm personally advocating for, we just got done talking about the playoffs. We're going to talk about the playoffs even more today. I would love to see a format in this 23-team environment that actually took the respective teams from the divisions that make the playoffs and that reseed them based on their points percentage per conference and then play things out that way. So it's possible you could see a first round matchup between a team like Rochester and perhaps, a Springfield in the first round. So kind of bring those in the case of the Eastern Conference. I believe that would be 11 teams. And in the case of the Western Conference, we'd be looking at 12 teams making the playoffs from their respective divisions. So the ones that are automatically qualifying, they're going to continue to qualify. And then we're going to realign it based on points percentage.
So let me get this straight. So if you kind of look like, even on like the AHL website, they list the teams in order 1 through whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means that number 1 would be playing number 23.
No. Sorry about that. So doing it per conference, splitting it up per conference. So in this case, and obviously things would get weird with like buys and stuff. I mean, coming up with a playoff for 11 teams is weird in the Eastern Conference. But for example, what that might look like is in the Western Conference, your top 4 seeds, which as of right now would just be, it would be Stockton, Chicago, Ontario, and Colorado. They would get a bye, and then you would go 5-12, 6-11, 7-10, 7-8, or 6-10, 7-8. And then kind of go that way, if that makes sense. I might be being a complicated profile again. I feel like I've done this before. Let me be a friend here, and let me share a little screen action to kind of give the viewers a little bit of a visual. So these are the division or conferences right now. Sorted by playoff or points percentage. So you would have these would be your. So for example. The Americans are currently the 5th team in the North, so they would make the playoffs, obviously. In this case, Belleville wouldn't make the playoffs, even though they're the 9th best team in the East per the playoffs, or per the seeding. But then you got teams like Hershey, Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and then Hartford making it. So it would just be by that. So they just omit Belleville from this list here, and you would go probably 3, 12, 4, 11, 5, 10, that kind of vibe.
Now, I'm personally someone that loves and wish that there were more inter-conference play. Because right now it seems that a lot of teams pretty much stay in their division. You don't see a lot of teams going out of conference, except for teams that live close where it geographically makes sense. For instance, I bring up Cleveland because they do. They play Chicago, Rockford, Grand Rapids. They play Utica, because it just geographically makes sense. I personally would love to see something like this. It opens up a little bit more competition. The teams get to see more, more, I guess the teams get to see different players, different styles of play. I think would make them more well-rounded. But the only thing that I could see people, I guess owners, saying no to this is because of the travel expense. But me personally, I would swipe right on it. I think it would be a lot of fun and really create a great atmosphere, create some new rivalries.
So, and that's a really good and interesting point that you kind of brought up there as well, is the traveling expense. So with that, you would kind of have to rejig, who plays home when, right? And it would kind of look a little more like an NHL style where you play two games, or something like that. Because, imagine if it was Toronto and, let's say Stockton or, San Jose, we're talking coast to coast. And that is a long flight and an expensive flight. And you're not going to get there on one Air Canada ticket, that's for sure. You're going to need to stop somewhere. And that's another big part of it too. So I like the idea because I really like it when we talked about it earlier when Grand Rapids was going against Ontario and that sort of thing. It was great to kind of see them play, but I kind of like the idea of, you're playing inside your division, the teams that you see the most, and you figure out who's the best, and then you keep going from there, right? Then who's the best in the East, and then who's the best, that sort of thing. I'm going to have to swipe left because it's good on paper, but I know that there's so many complications. It's like the Maple Leafs. They're great on paper, but they're just terrible on the ice. So
oh no.
yeah. Yeah.
It's okay. We can still be friends.
It's okay. Oh, do you want me to talk now? Is that what's happening?
Yes. Now, Zach, it is your turn.
I kind of alluded to it, and maybe I pleaded my case, but now is this time to see. You seen her walking in the mall, and you said, "Oh, she's really nice," or "She's not so good looking." Right? You seen her walk. You're right next to her in the grocery aisle. You guys were chatting up a storm. Then all of a sudden, you open up Tinder. Who's the first person you see? None other than this beautiful character who's standing in front of you. And I do think that the Wolfpack will not make it into the playoffs. I think that their spiral is simply going to continue. And, when we talk about the percentage-based game that we're playing right now, and Bridgeport is hot on their tails. And like we said, there's 0.007 between them right now, or 0.008 between them in the standings right now that separates Bridgeport or Spring or Hartford in that race. So I'm going to say that they're not going to make the playoffs, plain and simple.
Yeah, I mean, they control their own destiny is the piece that just makes it hard, right? Like that's like the piece that I'm like, you've got 6 games left. Bridgeport's got 4, so it's like how. I mean, can you just win more of your games? Can you just win more? And they'll end up in the same number of games played, so at least that doesn't overly complicate this situation like it does some others. But they've been bad.
And so it's also important to kind of think about some of the games that they do have coming up, right? And I do believe that they have a series against Rochester as well.
Yeah, right. So I'm like, that's part of the reason I'm like, they might make it in because things aren't always great there. But man, I'll swipe right because I'm kind of on this Islanders redemption arc. Like I'm kind of into it.
So before you kind of finalize anything, I will tell you their last games that they have coming up. So it's Belleville, Toronto, Rochester, Hartford, Bridgeport, and Hartford again. Oh, wait, no. They are Hartford. Sorry.
They are Hartford.
Okay, so they have Belleville, Toronto, Rochester, Charlotte, Bridgeport, and Wilkes-Barre Scranton. If that means anything to you.
Man, that game against Bridgeport. Go ahead and what are Bridgeport's remaining games? Do you have that?
I can get that. Yep.
Also, can I claim that Bridgeport that Bridgeport Hartford game for my game of the week in the Atlantic next week?
The 23rd. So Bridgeport is going to play Lehigh Valley, Wilkes-Barre Scranton, Springfield, and Hartford. So you are really rolling. So, you kind of can predict a couple of the games, but they have the easier, in my opinion, they have the easier schedule coming up. That's solely my opinion.
Oh, they're going to tie.
So it's 6 games left for Hartford versus 4. Bridgeport. 2 of Bridgeport's games are at home. Hartford only has 2 of their 6 at home. So they're going to be on the road. They're going to tie, aren't they?
Yeah.
Who said? Someone said at one point in the season.
It was me. I'm an idiot.
No. No. You did not. Oh, no.
No, I did. Certainly. I certainly did. This literally might be one of those occasions where it's like you close out of the app and you just hope for the best on the reshuffle because like what's gonna happen? How do you do this?
So now that you've went home and you've done your research, you realize that this crazy loon that you talked to in the grocery store lineup is secretly a crazy loon who could be right or could be wrong. You don't know.
Could be right or could be wrong. It feels like the story of my life. I'm gonna swipe right still. I think they'll miss. I'm just gonna go full chaos.
So just a quick reminder on the tie-breaking procedures, because I know last time we talked about this, I couldn't find them. So I have them bookmarked now. So this goes in order from A to G. First, it's percentage of games won in regulation, excluding overtime shootouts, obviously. Then percentage of games won in regulation or overtime. Then it's percentage of games won in any manner, points in season series between the teams, goal differential, goals scored in season series between the teams, and then finally intra-conference points percentage.
Y'all, that does not look good for Hartford. Hartford has 21 regulation wins as of right now, and Bridgeport has 23. Bridgeport has 27 regulation or overtime wins to Hartford's 24. So they've got a pretty sizable margin over Hartford on any of those tie breaks unless something changes pretty dramatically.
Well, you got to shift one column there. It's 6 overtime losses. Oh, wait. No. Now everybody's
right. So I'm looking at regulation wins. So regulation wins, Hartford has 21, Bridgeport has 23. Regulation and overtime wins, Hartford has 24 and Bridgeport has 27. So a lot of these wins for Hartford have come in the shootout. They've won 6 of their games in the shootout, and Bridgeport has won 2.
Are we just going to title this episode Confusion? Because we keep confusing
playoff.
It's because of Hartford. It's Hartford confusion.
Okay.
Poor Hartford.
Poor Hartford.
For us.
I guess
For us.
I forget your original take, so my swipe is whatever it means or whatever signals that Hartford's not going to make it in and that Bridgeport will go in. Because now I have more information. So I don't know if that's a swipe right or a swipe left. So you tell me.
I think it's right.
Okay, cool.
That's all right. You're good.
That's a right swipe. So, okay. So how about we take a break from the confusion and let's honor the young ones that have made the big leap into the American Hockey League in a segment we like to call They Grow Up So Fast. So last week we saw 3 AHLers make the jump up into the NHL, making their debuts. First, on April 7th, we had Philip Hollander with the Pittsburgh Penguins make his debut against the Rangers. 12 shifts, 5 minutes and 52 seconds worth of ice time. Then on the same night, Cole Reinhardt with Ottawa against Nashville in 8 minutes and 35 seconds of ice time, 2 penalty minutes, 13 shifts and 1 shot. And then on April 11th, Michael Eyssimont, 5 minutes, 49 seconds in his debut with the Winnipeg Jets against the Montreal Canadiens, 1 shot on 12 shifts. Again, 5 minutes, 49 seconds of ice time.
Yeah, it's usually that part of the year, too, where you don't see a whole lot of NHL debuts, especially because of the trade deadline. And, it makes it a lot harder to kind of shift guys up and down. And so you really, when the opportunity presents itself, great that they were able to kind of get some ice time. Obviously the Canadiens, the Jets are looking like they're going to be the spoilers in this, and Ottawa's looking like they're going to be the spoilers in this, but still, it's good to kind of get some NHL experience under your belt, especially in the later part of the season.
Well, right now it seems like a lot of the debuts are actually going to college skaters that are now finished with their seasons. They're coming in. I know Maddie Bernier, fresh out of Michigan, is, I believe, maybe tonight on Tuesday night going to be making his debut with Seattle. I believe the rumor is tomorrow, Kent Johnson, also out of Michigan, will be making his debut with the Columbus Blue Jackets. There's going to be others, but there have just been.
Power is currently, I believe, currently making his debut as we record, as the Sabres are beating the Leafs 4-2.
Oh, no.
It's Owen Power season, baby. 5-2.
5-2 now. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing these signings out of collegiate sports, out of collegiate hockey left and right now. So it seems like a lot of the debuts are open for them. But like Zach said, it's always great to get some NHL time under your belt. Congratulations to all 3 guys for making their long-awaited debuts. So, all right, we're going to shift our sights onto some players that have been in the league pretty much all season, to the point that they are now at the top of our scoring races. So first, we're going to look at the point getters. It's another 3-point week for Andrew Porrowski out of Chicago, keeping him square on top of this race. But TJ Tynan still hanging on right behind him, nipping on his heels after a 2-point week. Only 1 point separates the two of them. And then we talked about Stefan Noesen earlier on in the show. But Seth Griffiths as well. These 2 guys are moving right along with 4 points each. Now, as we look at the goals, again, we already talked about Stefan Noesen, so it's no surprise, guys, he's on the top of this list, 40 goals. Everyone on this list is pretty status quo from last week, so I doubt we see many changes as we come down the home stretch. I mean, now we do finally have a representative out of the Eastern Conference on this list. Player we talked about earlier on in the show, and Zac Dalpe, a center out of the Charlotte Checkers, checking in at number 8 with 28 goals. Still a long ways away from Stefan Noesen, Sheldon Dries, and Marty Ferk at 40, 35, and 34, but at least somebody from the Eastern Conference is there.
Yeah, and me and Andrew kind of talked about it again last week, where there's a lot of games in hand with Stefan Noesen, which kind of separates him, especially, we're talking about 8 games rather, in between them and 5 goals in difference. So, it's kind of one of those things. It's too bad that, it kind of works out sometimes like that in the AHL where you don't always get to see the full product, but it's such a great season for Chicago and even the Western Conference. We talk about it so much, is how great the talent is coming out of there. So it's been a really good race all year.
It makes you wonder if Sheldon Dries was active on this roster, whether or not he would be able to get to 40.
Even Marty Ferk.
Yeah.
Even Marty Ferk.
Marty would have. I have to believe that he would have gotten there, right? With the way he was playing at the beginning of the year.
But it came close.
Yeah, 34 goals in just 52 games. That's only 6 fewer goals in 10 fewer games. You would think it absolutely had to have happened. All right, so looking at the rookies, it seems like all season long we have been talking about the rookies out of Rochester. For good reason, but JJ Peterka had another great week. 2 goals, 2 assists last week. Honestly, he is helping to keep Rochester alive in the North Division race right now. Other big performance last week with 5 points was Jonathan Berggren out of Grand Rapids. Another Rochester rookie, Jack Quinn, with 4 points. And then Marco Rossi with the Iowa Wild, another big 4-point week.
When we kind of talk about the rookie race, which is one of the most fascinating to me, because when you kind of look at the games played versus goals scored, is actually a huge difference, and which really makes up this race. So Matthias Michelli, who's in third right now, he's got 55 points and 42 games played. And so he's currently out of the lineup, and he's still up in that those top 3 leaderboard. And when we talk about Jack Quinn, 37 games played, 54 points. So he's 8 points behind JJ Peterka at the top of the leaderboard. And I know I'm getting Jeremy a little riled up. I'm cranking the wheel a little bit, but it says a lot about how great those players are.
Yeah, and it makes you, it gets you excited about if this team can make the playoffs. Like, seeing those rookies in that environment would be absolutely electric, and being able to give them that developmental opportunity to play really meaningful hockey in April and May. This is a stretch that they're going to be familiar with in the next 5 years in Buffalo, dare I say it. They're going to be fighting for playoff spots. They're going to be fighting for big wins in May. I'm saying it now. You've got these rookies. You've got Owen Power, who I'm still holding true to my guns that I wrote it at the beginning of the year that if all things work out right, and if Rochester makes the playoffs, I promise you the Sabres aren't, and Owen Power might make his way down, and he might play some meaningful hockey for the squad. And that would be exciting to watch. It's something that Rochester, they have to make the playoffs for that reason alone.
I would almost want to buy tickets and make the drive up from Central Ohio to Rochester, New York, just to watch that happen.
100%. I guarantee you that building would be packed.
Oh, absolutely.
JJ Peterka, Jack Quinn, and Owen Power all on the same team. That is scary.
Peyton Krebs
as well.
Krebs. Yes.
It could be wild. This goes back to the team that we talked about back in February and in January. It's just, wow.
Please, Rochester, make it happen. Michael Mersch, lead the way, please. He's the veteran. He needs to lead the way. He needs to babysit these kids properly. All right. And we're going to kind of go on that note into the goals for rookies. Zach, you and Andrew talked last week about a little cushion that Jacob Pelletier had formed for himself, but that cushion is long gone. And granted, he's still on top, but he didn't score any goals last week. So Jack Quinn has caught up with him and is only 1 goal behind. We were talking about the whole games played thing. With him being only 1 goal behind in 37 games, whereas Jacob Pelletier out of Stockton has had 59 games. The next closest, J. Peterka, in 62 games, has 24 goals. Like, you just have to imagine that Jack Quinn would be light years ahead of everybody else had he not had call-up injury, all of that happened to him.
Yeah, and it says a lot about how good of a player he is, and you can easily make the case that he is one of the best rookies right now in the AHL, right? And that's clear evidence of it as well, right? So, when we he's blowing past the average Joes, and now he's landing himself in a second place position. That's great to see.
And just a quick look at the goalies. Earlier on, we had talked about Troy Grosenick. And honestly, earlier this season, we talked about the secret to staying on top of the goalie list. First, get to number 1. Second, from that point on, don't play any more games. Well, Troy Grosenick obviously listens to the Holy GrAHL podcast and is following that advice as he remains on top still. Same as last week with 28 games played with a 2.02 goals against average. Rounding up the top 5, you have Alex Lyon with a 2.18. He's out of Chicago. Kevin Poulin out of Laval, the 2.26. Dustin Wolf from Stockton, 2.28. And Stuart Skinner from Bakersfield with a 2.33. So now we have reached that time of the show and that time of the season where the playoff clinches are going to be coming fast and furious, guys. So we had quite a few teams clinch last week. So let's take a look at who did and where everything stands. So real quick here, the Charlotte Checkers clinched last Friday, 3-2 victory over the Wolf Pack. Now, these guys, they're the reigning champs from 2019, which was the last time the Calder Cup was awarded. So this is actually also their first season as the top development affiliate of the Florida Panthers, while they are enjoying some talents from the NHL's newest franchise, the Seattle Kraken. Then right behind them, the Utica Comets clinching a berth on Monday when the Belleville Senators dropped a 5-1 decision to Laval. Now, the Comets, this is their first season as the AHL affiliate of the New Jersey Devils. You guys remember they actually began the campaign with 13 consecutive wins for the best start in AHL history and have been they have been on top of the North Division ever since. Then Springfield clinching this past Monday evening when the Lehigh Valley Phantoms fell in Providence 2-1. Their first season as the top development team of the Blues. This is actually this shocked me, this is actually their first postseason appearance in club history, according to the American Hockey League, which I couldn't wrap my head around that. Like, really?
And I think back and I struggle to remember, even as the Falcons, that's going back. Obviously, it's from the Thunderbirds' time because, Springfield has been around since the age of time, I think, in the American Hockey League. But yeah, ever since they kind of rebranded themselves, it's the first time.
So then in the West, we have 2 teams that clinched this past week. First, Henderson Silver Knights punching their ticket thanks to a 7-3 win over San Jose on Sunday, while the Tucson Roadrunners dropped 5-3 in Rockford. So they're actually the 6th of 7 teams to clinch in the Pacific. Now, this is a very young organization, having only joined in 2020. So, of course, this is going to be their first run to the Calder Cup. Now, last year, they did reach the finals of the Pacific Division playoff. For those that don't remember, the Pacific Division was the only part of the American Hockey League to hold any sort of postseason play. So to round this out, the Manitoba Moose also clinching this past Saturday when they rallied late to earn a point in a 2-1 overtime loss to the Chicago Wolves. Of course, the AHL affiliate of the Winnipeg Jets making their first postseason appearance since 2018. So quick rundown of the clinches as of today on Tuesday. You have Charlotte and Springfield in the Atlantic, Utica in the North, Chicago, Manitoba in the Central, Stockton, Ontario, Abbotsford, Bakersfield, and Henderson in the Pacific. So as of right now, San Jose is the only team eliminated from the playoffs.
So one of the reasons why they may be eliminated, and I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but they haven't won a game since March 19th.
Yeah, that might do it. That might do it.
Against Tucson. And even then, it's Tucson. You won. Congratulations, you won a cookie. Like, it's Tucson. March 19th.
They'll take what they can get, Zach.
They're in their last 10 games, they have one loss outside of regulation. Other than that, you have to go back to the 19th where they won 5-2 against Tucson. What a barn burner.
That would do it fairly efficiently, considering we're in mid-April now. And you're talking about mid-late March.
It's been a part of a season where I don't think we've kind of seen them ever climb out of the bottom, and which is kind of sad. In the 3.57 win percentage, they win 35% of their games in the run of a year. It is kind of a tale of how tough of a season it's actually been for them.
All right. Well, I have a feeling we're going to be seeing that list, the elimination list, grow here pretty soon. But let's talk about the teams that, in good news, who can clinch their own playoff destiny this week. So first you have Providence, who is 2 points away from clinching a spot in the Atlantic Division. They will be playing at Lehigh Valley on Saturday and in Hershey on Sunday. If they don't clinch in that Saturday game, I will be beyond surprised. And then San Diego, also 2 points away. They will be in Ontario on Wednesday, at Ontario on Friday, and at home against Ontario on Saturday. So they've got a bit of a rougher road to getting those 2 points. But, I mean, even if they can just take it into overtime twice, there you go. There's your 2 points. It's all good.
Yeah, and you're also, I mean, if Tucson loses, which, newsflash, probably gonna, that'll also, I mean, like, they could honestly, I don't think they need to win another game all year. I think that they're in. Like, I think that they're pretty safe. So, hopefully they get it done this weekend. I'd love to see the Gulls get in, especially after all the flack that they got from us at the beginning of the season.
Boy, won't we be eating a lot of crow whenever we have, the Eagles and all of them getting into it.
Yeah, we'll be eating some sort of bird, that's for sure.
Oh, well, there you go.
No, the puns.
Either a gull or an eagle.
Correct. The Eagles a little bit more protected, but we'll manage.
Oh, well, true. We will be sure to follow any governmental regulations and protections for that.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's just take a quick look at the standings, of course, in the Atlantic Division. I mean, what a difference a week makes. Last week we had 0 Atlantic teams clinching into the playoffs. Now we have 2. Also, Charlotte now leads the division with Springfield falling into second place. Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and Hartford swap the 5 and 6 spots. So you have the Checkers, Thunderbirds, Bruins, Bears, Penguins, Wolfpack, Islanders, and tale as old as time, the Phantoms bringing up the rear.
Well, and then you look at the North, a lot of the same for the most part. Utica clinches, as we mentioned. Utica kind of on a little bit of a downer. I mean, it's the best way I can think to describe it. They've lost their last 4. They're 4-5-1, and their last 10. So it'll be interesting to see how they end the season. But Laval and Syracuse are getting hot at the right time, winning 7 of their last 10. Rochester, like we said, holds on to the final playoff spot by the skin of their teeth. 4 1,000ths of a point separate them and Belleville. Rochester, got points in their last 2. The Senators have lost their last 2, so they're going to go back and forth for a long time, but we'll see if Belleville can catch them.
Yeah, and we kind of talk about the Central Division. If your name is Texas or Grand Rapids, you're currently not in the playoffs as of right now, and a big part of that has to do with a series between Iowa and Texas, where things kind of came down, and it was Iowa coming on top. Iowa's won their last 4 games, and Texas has lost their last 3. So when we kind of talk about that playoff race, it's we obviously mentioned that Chicago has clinched their spot already, and Manitoba has already done it so as well. Going down the list, it's Milwaukee, then it's Rockford, Iowa, Texas, and Grand Rapids. When we kind of talk about games remaining, there's still 7 games left as going into Tuesday for Texas, 8 going in for Iowa. So 0.008 is the separation between those two. It is tough, and it means it's not over yet. And we'll have to see what kind of happens in the Central Division. But we look down into the Pacific Division, where things aren't as tight anymore. And, like we kind of alluded to, we've already seen most of the teams clinch their spot into the playoffs, if not all but one. And that's the San Diego Goals, where mathematically Tucson could still be in a playoff spot. Probably not going to happen at this rate. So once San Diego clinches either this week or maybe next, whenever they need to do so, that will be the final secure of the playoff, who's in sort of thing. So going up and down the list, Stockton, who's been really great over their last 10, they're at first. Ontario, who's been kind of slipping, but there's still time to regain. Then it's Colorado, Abbotsford, Bakersfield, and then Henderson, as well as San Diego, Tucson, and San Jose. So lots of good runs throughout the past week. I kind of looked down to Abbotsford, who's won 7 of the last 10. Colorado's 7 of the last 10 as well. And that's a big part of this playoff series in the Pacific Division.
And before we jump into our game of the week picks, a little bit of live breaking news. So if you're a fan of the Cleveland Monsters or the Laval Rocket and you were planning on going to their game in Cleveland this Friday, the 15th, well, hold on to those tickets, but don't show up. Actually, you'll need to be showing up a day earlier on Thursday. So change those plans because, the game has been rescheduled thanks to the NBA play-in game that will be hosted by the Cavaliers at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. So quick thank you to everybody who was messaging me, trying to ask me what was going on, when the game would be rescheduled. So yes, just one day earlier. So if you're listening to this on Friday and you didn't get the word, well, sorry, but you missed it. So yes, show up to the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse 24 hours early and you'll be good to go.
Man, no fun for the Monsters. No fun. They got to go from Grand Rapids to Cleveland. They got to play back-to-back games Wednesday, Thursday.
Oh, that's true. They do. Oh, ouch. Well, luckily they're not really playing for, a playoff spot right now, so it's okay. Kind of a downer way to look at it, but it's the reality of the thing. So anyway, let's go ahead and look at our game of the week. First of all, we're going to look in the Atlantic Division.
Yeah, again, I'm so not used to being the first one to go. But you look at the Atlantic Division, I cannot think of 2 teams that we've talked about ad nauseum this episode, and that's Rochester and Hartford. They're playing this weekend, and it's just huge. Every point matters in this one. Wouldn't mind to see this one be a 3-point game, but it'll be fun to watch.
And that's the big thing too. And I kind of got the same game. You kind of alluded to it. This is huge for both teams. Both teams really do need points coming out of this one, and this could be the wake up call for Hartford. That we kind of talked about it so much before, and I won't go too much further into it. But this is a very critical game for the Wolfpack, especially for the Atlantic Division. So we'll have to see what happens going into this game.
Yeah, without a doubt. And kind of going over to the north, again, I can't steal your thunder. I think you, Zach, you have the game of the week in the division, so I'll throw it to you in a second. But I'll look at Utica and Belleville. Utica, like I mentioned, kind of a little slow toward the finish line here. But Belleville, again, is playing for everything and more. And they need every single point they can get. And if they can get some out of a Utica team that's struggling, they're gonna take it and run.
Yeah, and you got to think about it too. When Belleville goes against Rochester on Friday, which is my game of the week, you want to talk about a critical game in the North. These 2 teams are on the cusp, and we talk about these crazy tiebreaker scenarios. yeah, you want to be on the plus side of that when this comes around. So if you're
No.
Belleville, you're going to want to get points out of Utica. It's going to be hard, but it's possible. You're going to want to get points out of Rochester and Rochester vice versa, right? We all know the cards that are being dealt for both these teams. 2 critical games all around for each club. So 4 in total. So this is going to be a great week to kind of figure out who's going to win the North Division.
Yeah, it's going to be tight. And kind of speaking of things that could be a little bit tight, this Iowa and Grand Rapids matchup on Friday, guys. I mean, I have to do it for Andrew. He's not here. You know that he would absolutely be in on any and everything Grand Rapids and Iowa. So I've got to go that direction. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Grand Rapids is probably on the outside looking in, but if they can win this one and if they can put together a stretch, it's going to be good news.
Well, a little bit of insider trading. Andrew kind of, mentioned that this was one of the games that he was kind of teetering on as well, and that's Friday, Chicago and Texas. On one side, the Stars need a huge rebound following the sweep of the Wild. On the other hand, Kochetkov continues to be insane in his North American debut with the Wolves. And so that's must-see hockey on one side, but it's David versus Goliath on the other. The Stars need something out of this playoff series, and we'll have to this regular season series, and we'll have to see what happens.
Absolutely. And then we move over to the Pacific where things are – it's fun hockey over there, don't get me wrong. But things are pretty much all tidied up. So coming up with a game that matters in this division is a little tricky, at least in my book. I'm looking at Henderson and San Diego only because of what we mentioned earlier. San Diego is on the precipice of clinching, but they also are only 1 position behind Henderson. And if Henderson continues to slip like they have toward the end of the season, and if San Diego can get on a tear, it's going to be all the difference between whether or not a team has to play Utica or not Utica, Stockton, or whether or not they're going to have to play Ontario. And that's going to matter a lot in the Pacific. So I think I'm going to look at that one.
Yeah, and if the playoffs started today, it would be Abbotsford and Bakersfield, and they both play this weekend. It's going to be important to kind of see what your opponent looks like. The season series does go to Bakersfield 4-2. But that doesn't mean much, especially when it comes playoff time. Anything can happen. I've seen a definite change in Abbotsford over the past couple of months, a lot more than what I've seen for Bakersfield. So not to mention Bakersfield been playing great, but I've seen a lot more of a change in Abbotsford, and this game is going to be an important one for both these teams.
So just to go back to the North Division, just really quick, and you guys were talking about how tight that is and how close everything is. Listen to these magic numbers from the AHL playoff primer for the remaining teams in the North. So Laval, 12, Syracuse Crunch, 14, Toronto Marlies, 15, Rochester Americans, 16, Belleville Senators, 17.
Wow.
One of those teams is going to be left out. And it is single point differences between 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Who do you think? Say it right now. Who's missing?
No, I can't.
Nope, right now. Zach, who's missing?
I can't.
You have to.
No.
Yep.
No.
Yep.
This it's going to be Rochester. And I love Rochester as a team. I do, but I don't know. But Belleville's also not great. And I don't
It's
know.
going to be Belleville.
I don't know who's on loan up in the Senators right now in O. I don't. And that's You
said that's between 3, 4, 5, and 6. They're single points.
Yes.
Who's a third? Rochester?
Syracuse. Okay, so I'll just read down the North Division now. So of course Utica's clinched. Laval is second with 12 points needed. Syracuse is third with 14. Toronto with 15. Rochester with 16. Belleville with 17.
Okay, you're on the playoff primer?
Yes.
Who has the worst strength of schedule or like the hardest strength of schedule remaining?
can pull it up manually.
Okay, Laval has a 5.38, Syracuse 5.82, Toronto 5.65, Rochester 5.63, Belleville 5.73. Belleville's missing, I think.
Wait, could it be Syracuse? A 5.82 remaining?
I think they can do it. I really can.
I do too. I think Belleville's gonna miss.
So Belleville's last few games include Hartford, Rochester, Utica, Laval, Toronto, Syracuse, Toronto.
Oh my gosh, it might end up actually being a conversation between Toronto and Belleville.
Toronto, they got Hartford, Syracuse, Belleville, Laval, Belleville, Laval, Belleville.
That's tough too.
So they play like 3 games against Laval there and 3 games against Belleville in the stretch.
God, I love the Eastern Conference.
Oh,
yeah. Tune in next time on the Holy GrAHL.
That's it. Goodbye, folks.
All right. Well, I'm going to run you guys as if we weren't confused and our minds weren't just totally done enough.
What are you going to do?
Since we were going to, since we spent so much time talking about the playoffs, I decided to, do a little bonus round regarding some playoff records.
Oh, God.
With this. So, and I'm not talking about like, what was the record, of this team in the playoffs. I'm talking like league records, So just for instance, here's our first question. Can you tell me the fastest goal scored in AHL playoff history from the start of any period? Just how many seconds?
I can't tell you that, Deana.
Over, under. Just the closest.
Do you just want the number of seconds?
Yes.
4 seconds.
8.
Jeremy was right. 4 seconds.
Shut up.
Scored by Jarrett Stoll from Hamilton on May 22nd, 2003 versus Binghamton in the third period.
Bingo. This is your official bingo moment on the Holy GrAHL.
Yes. That's 2 and 2 appearances for me personally that we talk about bingo. All right. How about what's the number of the most sudden death overtime goals in one playoff?
Girl, where are you getting these? These are in depth.
I put these from the AHL.com.
Most sudden death goals.
Number.
I'm gonna
say 5.
I was gonna say, 16 wins to win a championship. Let's go 8.
Zach was the closest. It's 3.
In a series?
From Oliver Bjorkstrand in the Lake Erie Monsters in 2016.
Wait, did you say it was in a series? You said, or is it in
one entire playoff?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, how about the most wins by a goaltender in one playoff? Now, this has happened 4 times. So, I guess in one postseason, the most wins by a goaltender.
16?
Yeah, it have to be 16 now. It
is 16. Wade Flaherty from Milwaukee, 2004. Frederick Kasivi, I'm sorry, from Hershey in 2006. Andre Pavlik, Chicago in 2008. And Michael Neuwirth for Hershey in 2009.
That is actually so fascinating because think how many NHL goaltenders do you think have won all 16 games in a playoff run? That is a very fascinating niche stat to the AHL.
It is. It really is. Especially, some of the names on there ended up playing in the big show. You have Pavlik and Neuwirth there. So, okay. How about this? Most points scored by a rookie in one postseason.
Oh God. I'll go 25.
I'll go 31.
Hold on, you're making me do math here.
Oh no.
You guys tied. It was 28. It was right in the middle of both of you.
Naturally.
No. So we're
From-
still tied in this right now. So
From Mike Sillinger in Adirondack in 1992. Just, slight ties to the NHL and AHL now. Both of two of his sons playing with Cleveland and Columbus, Owen and Cole. So 1992, 9 goals, 19 assists in 15 games played. And someone a little bit more recent, Alex Goligoski from the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins in 2008, 4 goals, 24 assists in 23 games played.
Wow.
good stuff.
Which amazing. So, okay, I got 2 more questions for you. Who was the last back-to-back Calder Cup winner? They are a current team.
I knew this.
The last back-to-back Calder Cup. Their current team.
Would I be silly to say Hershey? It's the easy out though. That's so easy.
Yeah, but it might be right.
No, Chicago.
I'll say Hershey just for fun, but I have no idea.
It was the easy out because it was right. It is Hershey. In
I'm so sorry.
2010.
I should have known.
Oh my
right.
gosh.
So Jeremy has the lead. Got one more question for you guys.
That's pathetic. I'm so sorry, Zach.
That's how you seem to win most of yours, Jeremy.
It is. I don't know if I've ever actually won one fair and square, to be fair.
All right. So last question. Since the start of the 2010 and 2011 season, every team to win the Calder Cup did it for the first time in their franchise history, except for one team. Which team was it?
It would have. Wait.
So since the back-to-back, since the Hershey Bears in 2010. So from that point on.
So, like, you mean in that city? So, like, if we talk about Toronto, and then they won in, like, years and years before that.
It would just be that specific franchise.
Okay.
Not city, but just that franchise. If I did my research right, I'll say that.
Would it be Grand Rapids? I feel like they've won 2 in that time period.
Binghamton.
It's actually Grand Rapids. And Jeremy is right. They did it both in that time period in 2013 and 2017. So they got their first, and then in that time period, they got their second.
I only know that because whenever I go to Van Andel, I see the banners and they're different logos, and I always clock that in my head. I'm always like, wow, how things change.
All right. Well, Jeremy, congratulations. You will take the bonus round.
I know. I gotta get working on my content. I always forget about it until the day of our episode. So next week I'll come at you with a good one.
Are you kidding? I put that one together about a half hour before we started recording.
Good work.
Thanks to the AHL.com and their Calder Cup history section for all that info. I appreciate you guys. But that's going to be it for the Holy Grail this week. If you like us, please subscribe, like, share, rate this podcast 5 stars, tell all your friends. But if you want to talk to us a little bit more, be sure to give us all a follow on Twitter. You can find me at FPH Monsters.
You can find me at FPH Americans.
And I'm FPH Marlies.
And also be sure to check out all of our written work at fieldpasshockey.com. Check out all the other Field Pass Hockey podcasts, including Inside the SPHL with James Hayes, Syracuse Speaks with Alexander Ackerman, for everything you want to know about the Syracuse Crunch, especially as they head down here in the last few weeks trying to secure that spot in the playoffs. And then for everything Cleveland Monsters, you have Monsters Musings with Jay Forrester and myself. And also, if you want to catch some more Charlotte Checkers hockey, you can find their games broadcast live on our Field Pass Hockey app. So on behalf of all of us here at the Holy Grail, We hope you guys have an amazing week, and we will catch you all later. Have a good one, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
This has been the Holy GrAHL podcast. Have a question or topic suggestion? Hit us up on Twitter or drop us an email. For the latest news across the American Hockey League and the rest of minor league hockey, download the Field Pass Hockey app, now available in the Apple and Android app stores.